Maybe Zoom. Sorry, I'm running the worst chair of a meeting today. Sorry. It is, oh yeah, we're 2 minutes late. Where's everybody? Me and the boys. It's just me.
Yeah, now nobody.
Councillor Bermansky, Councillor Hughes, are you there? There we go. There's one.
Councillor Hughes is just joining.
I could log into that. Okay. Okay, there's Councillor Hughes. Councillor Killick is in the room. Councillor Broadhead anywhere around? I know Ken just went to the bathroom. But we do have quorum, so I'm gonna get going. I wait for no one.
That's a movie title.
Let's see if I can share this one with a little bit more skill. Let's call this meeting to order. This is a special council meeting. Got some financial stuff. Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Attendance at the start of the meeting is Councillor Jolly, Councillor Bermansky, Councillor Hughes, virtual, Councillor Killick, Councillor Broadhead, and myself in the room. And then when Ken rejoins us, we will register that, take note of that. I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Want to do it again, Mike?
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Call for the vote. All right, that is passed. All right, first thing is Mr. Fletcher, you're going to give us a dazzling Q4 presentation that includes song and dance and music and.
I will give you a Q4 presentation. Chip, just trying to share.
No dancing, okay. You didn't miss anything.
No. Neither did you.
You made your motion.
I was just, I'm sure I could feel that. So song and dance aside, good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm here to present 2023 report. Period concluding on the 31st of December, 2023. As you know, it's called a quarterly report for a reason, because we do it 4 times a year, at least twice trying to present it in person, and really looking at 2 components of it. And the first is an update on progress of advancing your strategic plan through specific initiatives, most of which are contained in the corporate business plan. And then I'll provide a financial overview for the quarter, and then we'll move into the year-end components with finance experts. Do you know your strategic plan outlines the what you would like to achieve during your term? And the corporate business plan then is the transition into the how. Looking at key outcomes desired to advance the priorities. What's not included in the quarterly updates are the day-to-day delivery of services. So we talk about, which is a significant investment in terms of resources and time. That's because the focus really is on, again, your strategic plan and the corporate business plan, most of the day-to-day delivery. It's important to note that this progress, as I noted, concludes as of December 31st, 2023. And the work that I will talk about, in particular, those projects that are in progress have continued on. And in a couple of cases, I'll be able to provide a current update as to where those sit. As you can see on the slide, there are 47 initiatives planned to advance your council priorities over the course of 2023. At the end of Q4, which is the end of the last calendar year, 19 have been completed. 13 are on track. 5 projects were delayed for a variety of reasons, and I'll talk about those. And 10 projects now are scheduled to begin with a bit of a forecast or outlook in 2024 and 2025. Looking at your strategic priority number 1, economic prosperity. Of the active initiatives under this priority, 3 are on track and 1 is delayed but in progress. Focusing in a bit more specifically, Lakeview Business District servicing. We are still in the process of compiling the high-level service cost estimates, and in fact, looking at the options that council has been previously briefed on. These estimates will help inform potential project options like phasing and scope servicing of the lands in the Lakeview Business District. That includes city-owned component and the Lakeview Business District as a whole.
Can you hold on one sec, Bill?
Yep.
Sounds like the YouTube's not up. Maybe we should wait.
I can do it better if I get.
Is this,
Ask him to publish the link. It's live right now.
okay,
Link, so it shows up on the city site. He's gonna do that.
okay,
Comments on it.
okay, so we can keep going?
Keep going.
Like everything's being recorded, it'll be all full.
All documented, 100%. Yep.
Thank you, sorry about that.
No, thank you, Your Worship. So I'll start again with your indulgence at Lakeview Business District servicing. So administration is still in the process of compiling the high-level service cost estimates. And obviously the estimates inform the potential project options. You look at things like phasing and scope ultimately for servicing the lands, and that includes city-owned lands and holistically the Lakeview Business District. The next steps really focus on council receiving council approval for the ASP and then the continuation of the conceptual engineering design for the Lakeview Business District servicing. By way of a current update, as I think I've mentioned to the council, the team has completed a 3-day workshop looking at servicing options, and that will be coming to council in the next couple of months at the end of Q1, Q2 for consideration. Regional and sub-regional economic development, that is really the collaborative economic development model. CEO steering committee has sat, and the financial and the methodology have been finalized and approved at the steering committee, subject to approval, obviously, by the mayors. Progress has been made on developing the incentives framework. And in fact, we had a CED meeting yesterday where that incentive framework was approved, and the site identification tools, which is really a heat map across the region, was completed as well. Phase 3 of the CED project is expected to conclude at the end of Q1 of this year, marking the completion acceptance of all Phase 3 deliverables. And then we really get into sort of the execution and the maintenance phase of the collaborative economic development model. Updating of the land use bylaw, public engagement activities were conducted, including an in-person public open house, virtual open house, and an online survey.
Bill, I don't know who's driving the slides.
I'm still on this slide.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you want me to skip ahead. If I'm boring, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Get on.
I'm gonna answer your question. No, I think I'm working through it. In addition, in-person stakeholder sessions were held with both the Urban Development Institute and the Canadian Home Builders Association. What We Heard report was created and is available on the City of St. Albert's Cultivate the Conversation website, and obviously that effort continues, looking at coming to council in the coming months. St. Albert's West Area Structure Plan and Neighborhood Plan, a critical component as we start looking at the economic long-term financial stability and the economic draw into the west of St. Albert is underway. Servicing design brief, natural features assessment, and prioritization report, and the transportation impact assessment are all underway. As the technical studies near completion, we're preparing the form of circulation of the ASP and the technical studies, which is going to occur in Q1 of 2024, that we've had a delay of a couple of weeks. I think at a minimum based on some of those reports. A public hearing for the St. Albert West ASP is expected to take place late in Q2 of this year to provide for an opportunity for community input, an additional opportunity for community. A meeting with the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board is also in the works before the ASP is formally submitted as a regional framework evaluation application. I would offer that also working with the MRB, we're also working with our neighboring municipalities to ensure that they're fully aware of the contents before this goes forward as a formal draft. Looking at your second strategic priority, downtown vibrancy, 2 are on track and 1 complete of the 3 projects under this heading. Planning for Millennium Park development, as you're well aware, the 3 development plan options were presented to the Standing Committee of the Whole for Lions Park, for the parks at large. The high development option was chosen, and a borrowing bylaw is being prepared for council's approval in Q1 of 2024. RFP for the project designer will be drafted once the bylaw is approved. And a point of fact, we've got the project charter and everything is proceeding apace, so there's no concerns from a Millennium Park downtown perspective. Downtown area the DARP. The downtown area redevelopment plan update and prioritization. As you're well aware, this council heard a presentation on reframing the scope a little bit of DARP writ large, and from their administration is now enacting guidance that was received during that discussion. And finally, the Business Improvement Area Committee held its inaugural annual general meeting on the 9th of November, 2023. Committee reviewed revenue and expenditure estimates for the 2024 calendar year based on the potential BIA tax collections from its members, and they elected 5 members to the board of directors. The members have agreed to dedicate another meeting, which I believe has already occurred, to further discuss strategic budgeting considerations before presenting their 2024 operating budget to council for approval. And as council is well aware, your approval is required of the budget. And at that point in time, to appoint the BIA board of directors, approve the proposed operating budget, and then pass a commensurate BIA tax to support it. This must be done before May 1st of 2024. Things are on track from that perspective. Strategic priority 3 on track, 2 delayed when completed. Housing, as you will note, is a key factor that stems throughout this. The advanced mixed market housing development preliminary drawings were reviewed externally for compliance with city policies. Homeland Housing has applied for a $14.5 million grant from the Alberta Affordable Housing Partnership Program and CMHC Co-Investment Fund, with responses expected in 2024. Ongoing advocacy efforts by council and by administration as well continue with federal and provincial governments to that end. And we are in discussions with the Homeland Housing Executive Director about what options exist in terms of trying to expedite the process. Feasibility study for youth transitional housing. Project team continued to work with consultants to engage with external stakeholders, including youth servicing agencies and youth writ large. Engagements yielded a positive response with valuable input gathered to inform feasibility study, including insights into the opportunities and challenges that exist. Summary report from that engagement activities and a gap analysis report are expected to be provided to the city in early this year. Significant progress was made on the community social needs assessment, including the completion of the review analysis of public and stakeholder survey results. Distribution of a status update memo to executive leadership and then ultimately onward to council, and the posting of the What We Heard report on the Cultivate the Conversation platform. Initiation of work on the demographic and social fact sheets is also ongoing. Additionally, planning commenced for the community engagement session shortly. The housing needs assessment project has been delayed, but is now scheduled for completion in Q2 of 2024. Afterward, the second phase, involving the development of a housing diversity monitoring program, will begin. Provisional housing needs assessment was completed in October of 2020, using 2021 statistics, housing data, and that was done specifically because it was necessary for Alberta Affordable Housing Partnership grant applications to the province, as well as the federal government may require something similar as they look at potential approvals for the Housing Accelerator Fund, on which we were still waiting word. All of this also feeds into regional efforts to craft a regional housing strategy to enable growth and partnership across the entirety of the Edmonton metropolitan region in conjunction with partnerships with other orders of government. A working group on Indigenous reconciliation was established to provide guidance and advice on activities relating to recognizing National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th, 2023 in St. Albert. Plan is to continue making progress through Q1 of 2024 with a focus now on completing the project plan for the Reconciliation Action Plan and preparing for the establishment of an advisory entity that would be formed by that plan. Finally, in Q4 of 2023, a new team member was hired to help finish the administrative directive for the municipal naming project. December, a draft of the directive was shared with internal stakeholders for input, and all website forms and documents were updated to match the directive's requirements. The directive is not expected to be ready for approval because I approved it this morning. In fact, it will go out quite shortly. Adapting to a changing natural environment, 2 projects completed. The first was the climate risk and vulnerability assessment, really the climate adaptation plan. The CRVA report was presented and unanimously approved at the December 14th, 2023 meeting of the EMRB, the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board. Following this approval, administration is conducting a comparison between St. Albert's climate adaptation plan and the EMR CRVA to identify any gaps and define the next steps for climate adaptation in the region. Council briefing is planned for Q1, Q2 of 2024 to keep stakeholders informed of the progress and findings related to this initiative. Lastly, Green Environment Strategy was successfully completed and official release to Council on December 4th. The release of the strategy to residents and external stakeholders is planned for this month. In fact, mostly last month, moving into this month. Moving forward, the key tasks include the assessment of resources to lead the tactics outlined in the implementation plan. Further development of measures identified in the strategy and the establishment of a framework for reporting and monitoring progress on the green environment strategy measures. I would note that this is not the purview solely of the Environment Department. In fact, this is a cross-cutting element that underpins much of what the city does. Strategic Priority 5, financial stability, sustainability, 5 on track, 2 delayed, 1 completed. The long-term debt strategy, the team has been actively working on the review and revisions of sections within the current debt management policy. As you will recall, a presentation to council took place during the council strategic planning session in January. The next step involved completing and confirming the policy revisions and finalizing a report based on the environmental scanning information gathered. And this is also a practical discussion that I think informs much of what happened at the previous council meeting as we start looking forward in terms of informing council's decisions on major investments in the future. Standardizing capital project and contract management procedures. The contract has been finalized and the project commenced in December. Initial consultations with internal stakeholders are planned to take place early in this year. Change management plan for the enhanced records and information management practice is in development to establish specific tactics and key messages aimed at supporting employees through these changes. The digitization directive is currently undergoing a legal review and associated procedures are being finalized. It's anticipated that the digitization directive will be finalized and approved in the first quarter of this year. As a reminder, this is as much about good hygiene as it relates to our records management as it is about compliance as we look at the importance of being able to access documents in accordance with the overarching statutory directions. Procurement audit and implementation phases 1 and 2. To date, 36 procurement processes have been documented. Internal reviews of new contract templates for goods and services are complete, as well as construction projects. And they are ongoing, the ones for construction projects are ongoing, expected to conclude by the end of the year. So for all intents and purposes, concluded as I present this report. A soft launch of the new tender drafting software is currently in progress, and feedback from early users will inform a larger rollout later in 2024. Advancing the integrated risk management framework and practice, the project team reviewed the deliverables for 2023 to align the work with progress made through the internal audit committee deliverables. The focus is on validating risk owners' treatments and mitigations, and the project plan will be updated actually in the coming month. But ultimately, the decisions of the internal audit committee were based on the good work that went into producing that in the first instance, which will result in our first audit. Mature asset management program, limited progress has been made on this since Q3 of 23, due to resources and capacities holistically. The team advanced with the State of the Infrastructure report, which is a crucial component of the asset management program and serves as the foundation for enterprise maintenance program, asset management, EMM/AM implementation, which is a significant line of endeavor across the city as we look at getting better visibility and being able to better manage and maintain our assets. Process improvements for planning, development, and engineering. The project was initiated in December with initial meetings focusing on updating the work plan timelines and confirming the city's project team. Planning is currently underway for the initial internal stakeholder engagement sessions. Due to contract negotiations caused a slight delay in the project start, the completion date will be adjusted. And lastly, as already mentioned, practice and process related to the internal audit committee, the consultants presented the final report along with deliverables in October of last year. Committee provided input and contributed to finalizing the updated bylaw and the multi-year work plan. This updated internal audit steering committee bylaw was approved by council and subsequently shared with the committee in December. And as a result, the project has now reached completion. I'll now present the financial summary for Q4 2023, effectively year-end 2023. As of December 31st, 2023, as you can see on the right, we look at revenues, 198.6 million in operating revenue was recognized, which is about 0.9 million or $900,000 above budget. 194 million has been spent, which is 3.7 million below budget. This results in a 4.6 million surplus forecast for end year, mainly due to higher net interest revenue, lower expenses in public operations due to favorable weather, higher sales and user fees in recreation and transit, which is good news from a user perspective, unbudgeted operating grants, and full-time salary vacancies. This chart identifies the progress status of all municipal capital projects. In total, 91% of the 155 municipal capital projects are currently in progress or complete, with 49 projects being closed as of year end. Details of the 106 projects requesting to be carried forward into 2024 are presented in the operating and capital carry forwards and completed projects agenda report. Almost at the end. Utilities budget. As of the end of December 31st, 2023, the city recognized $45 million in revenue and $32.4 million in expenses across the utilities budget. The lower revenue was due to customers consuming less water and wastewater consumption, which is not a bad thing holistically. The lower expense is due to less water purchased and wastewater treatment charges due to less water consumed. So obviously a cause and effect relationship across those two components, as well as a reduction in contracted services from service providers for solid waste. This has resulted in a $0.03 million higher than budget transfer to reserves. Chart identifies the progress status of all our utilities capital projects. In total, 89% of the 55 projects currently in progress or complete are currently in progress or complete, with 14 closed at year end. Details of the 41 projects that we are requesting to be carried into 2024 are presented in the operating and capital carry forwards and completed projects agenda report. In summary, 2023, the city surplus sits at $4.6 million. Strong investments, reserve funding, and low debt, the city continues to maintain a strong financial position while maintaining high service levels that our residents expect and deserve, while also advancing strategic priorities identified in council. We recommend the council receive the Q4 quarterly report as information, and this concludes my presentation, pending any questions or guidance. Thank you.
That was a song and dance?
Awesome.
Open it up for questions. Wes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Back to the housing. City of St. Albert had to give our housing requirements to the province. There's I don't know if it's a dispute, but certainly a conversation between the province and the feds around how federal money will fall on municipalities. So we got one project that we'd like to get done. We need grant money. Has that discussion between the feds and the province, is that stopping us from getting the money?
I don't believe it is at this stage. I think, in particular, the money we're talking about is the Housing Accelerator Fund money that we'd asked for our housing approach holistically. I don't know this for a fact, but I believe the feds are working big to small. And so if you look at most of the major announcements have been large metropolitan centers. And so St. Albert being a mid-sized city, both provincially and nationally, I don't know where we sort of fall out in the mix. And so the ongoing discussions, I think, by the province to look at the flow of federal monies and that relationship to municipalities has to date not impacted that particular funding flow.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Mike, just a question, Mr. Fletcher, on this slide, Indigenous reconciliation. The comments said it's a plan to develop a plan, and it's delayed because we were short of staff, I think. It was
that was an element of it. And
it's setting up a steering committee.
So in fact,
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, so this comes from the Pehonen report, holistically, that looked at an advisory body for the city and for council in particular. There was, very quickly, sort of by way of context, the discussion was, does that advisory body take the form of a traditional council committee? Is it something different, and how does that work? And I can certainly, I think
I just forgot which direction.
Yeah, so we went back to first principles and said, let's come up with our reconciliation plan, which was also part and parcel of the Pehonen report, and that would include then what a potential advisory body would look like. Trevor, please feel free to jump in.
I think you answered the question, Bill. Yeah.
So the advisory body is going to look like what?
To be confirmed.
To be confirmed.
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially has a group of people who does.
And so we do have an inform. And so the Indigenous Relations team consults widely with stakeholders for any issue that we do in the city. And this, what we're looking at is ultimately trying to formalize that somewhat, right, in accordance with our entirety of our reconciliation.
Okay. To be determined as.
Of what form it actually takes, right? Yes, absolutely.
The second question was on budget, and it was a lot of the budget underruns were, I think, related to staffing vacant positions. And my question is, it's a different staff issue if it's somebody driving a lawnmower versus a management type position where we have said we're kind of maxed out on our management capacity. Is it, where do those vacancies fall? Do you have a view? Are they more on the operational side than the kind of admin management side? And is it limiting us getting things done?
It's split. Truthfully, I think most of the vacancies tend to roll over at the sort of the lower levels of the organization. But having said that, there are always knock-on effects that have implications at the supervisory and managerial level.
Yeah.
And obviously we had a significant decision at the executive level, right? Though not germane necessarily to this funding. And so we've actually very good retention numbers overall. And we've seen a couple of very technical areas, very good interest in our hiring practice. So I do not believe it's impacted holistically in terms of our ability to get things done by hiring vacancies.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Awesome. Any questions?
Just to follow up on
Oh,
the HR, just a congratulatory on the HR, because a couple of budgets ago, we ended up actually on our WCB funding, the PERS, we weren't getting anything back. And now I think we brought in an extra position to help manage with some of those getting back to work. So just congratulations on actually flipping that and now having $212,000 back is well done. So well done, Ryan. And all your employees, of course.
And Ryan, if it's okay,
Yeah.
Your Worship, Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add to the vacancy issue or any additional comments on the WCB?
I think you hit the vacancy issue spot on in the sense that there's a cascading turnover that creates just an inherent a vacancy that we have to work through. And we do budget quite well on the timing of new positions to try and minimize that budgetary surplus. On the WCB, I just want to comment that our efforts are working relative to our peers, but the industry that we are in is challenged, and I think we're not going to see a whole lot of premium relief as quickly as we'd like. So as much as we're seeing larger rebates than historical, the industry itself is struggling, which means that all municipality premiums are going up higher and faster than we want. So just adding a little bit of a cloud onto a otherwise good story.
Don't add anything next time.
Any more questions? Okay, let's jump over the financial side.
We need a short presentation, Brenda Bartley will introduce that.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. I'm here this afternoon to present the city's 2023 preliminary year-end surplus position, as well as to make recommendations for the distribution of the surplus. Throughout 2023, as you've just heard, the city has been fiscally responsible, and we are in a strong financial position. The city is currently reporting an estimated $4.6 million surplus, which is approximately a 2.3% variance from the 2023 approved budget, $198 million. Typically, administration recommends transferring the surplus to the stabilization reserve. However, the balance in this reserve is currently at $9.3 million. So it would be contrary to policy to transfer the surplus funds here. For this reason, administration is recommending transferring the surplus funds equally
to the Municipal Land and Facilities Reserve and the Capital Reserve. This recommendation takes into consideration the unanticipated reduction in the Local Government Fiscal Framework, or LGFF, provincial grant of approximately 1.6 million. And this will enable the city to have funds available to support ongoing development of commercial and industrial lands.
Can I interrupt for 2 secs?
Yeah.
Normally, the quarterly report has, the bill side and then the financial side. And then but you're going already into 3.2, are you not?
Right.
Yes, because
Okay.
Bill had summarized the financial.
Everything.
Yeah.
Why don't we make a motion to receive
Yeah, I
your
was gonna say.
information?
Oh, I
Okay. Okay, Councillor Hughes, you want to make the Q4 report?
Oh, there we go. That the attachment to the February 13th, 2024 agenda report entitled Corporate Quarterly Report, Q4 2023 be received as information.
Sorry about that, guys. Okay, call for the vote.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, I gotta move on my dinner.
All right, that's carried. Sorry, let's continue on.
That's fine. Well, I'm almost done.
Bill, how was that?
Financials and part of the Q4, but okay.
So essentially, if council would like to make an alternate recommendation for the surplus funds, we would ask that you make an amended motion today so that we can finalize the surplus position for the year-end audit. And I will take any questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Questions, guys? Ken?
I'm just looking at kind of the policy around the CFS 05 that you've identified, and it says there's 3 all reserves, municipal, one-time expenditure, or repayment of outstanding debt. Is there any, is it just because of penalties in relation to our debentures that we would retire them any earlier? Like, for example, I'm just looking at Service Place and retiring that one with some of the surplus, or is it just because of penalties, which would just not make it
feasible? And you're bang on. It is the penalties, and they have something called a stop loss option.
Yeah.
That you would incur if you prepay the debenture early. So we did a calculation a few years ago and it just wasn't viable at all.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't do that.
Yeah, okay. Cause I was just looking, cause there's one that's like 0.9, there's a couple that are 2.3 now. So it just doesn't make any real sense to use it as I'm just wondering why we would have it in our policy then. Maybe we should remove it if it's not gonna be something that we would do.
That is a good point. We'll look to update that because that's.
But there's some debt, like if you take on debt from different lending institutes, then they don't have as many penalties. That's always been the problem with the Alberta government.
Turn finance, the odd time and stuff.
Well, it would be something whether we could bring it back to see whether or not the pros and cons of it. It just that if we're not gonna use it, then there's no harm, I guess, keeping it, but at the same time, I don't know. It's just something maybe to look at. I was just curious in relation to that. The other one is what's involved in creating a new reserve? Like right now, we're gonna start to see utility.
Ken Mackay's retirement reserve?
Ken Mackay's retirement reserve, yeah. No. Got one of those already. What I'm thinking about, like now we're gonna see some impacts from utility. And I think we only have 2 utility reserves, right?
So we have one for each line.
Yeah,
For utility reserves.
okay. So is there anything to say that we couldn't look at moving some of this into we could obviously make a motion to move it into a different, like a utility reserve, but they're mainly for capital, right? They're not to defray maybe ongoing impacts of increased utility costs, utility fees and on the tax side.
And that's why the reserves, like if there's surplus reserves in the utility operations.
Yeah.
That goes back.
Just rolls back in.
Utility reserves. So that's a main philosophy of the utility fiscal policy is that those reserves, when we look at the modeling and establishing those rates, that they'd be sufficient.
Pay for themselves.
Those reserve balances in consideration with that. So that's the main concept of those.
See that, and that's
In place. If you're talking about the municipal operations surplus being transferred to that's
okay. I got you now.
recommend that, but we do when we build in the budget, we administration fees and kind of balance the expenses between the entities, and those other reserves are in place to
Okay.
Services operations. Does that answer?
That makes sense. I just wanted to make sure that it was something that got out and why, the reasons as to why. I think that, I mean, if you're looking at it, I mean, it looks like potentially you could look at, you know, looking at to defray an increased tax. So is it like just on the municipal operating, or could it be on the utilities as well? So that's all I was trying to think about. So I'm not, the way you're looking at me, you're not following. I'm not making any sense.
No, that's the main concept.
Okay.
And the stabilization on the municipal
Yes.
is for that tax
That's,
relief.
Yeah.
Want to use that.
okay.
And it's built into the utility.
No, and that's just, I just wanted to make sure we got it up.
Question reach.
There's a. Sorry.
Thank you.
For everybody on live stream, that is Sean's best size.
There we go. Okay, Councilor Mansky.
Thank you. I just have one question on doing a needs assessment of which reserve is most in need of the funds. Was that completed, or was it just, you know, sort of a simple solution to divide it 3 ways and?
2 ways.
2 ways.
Can speak to it started. So we did evaluate future requirements. Taking into consideration 2 things was the LGFF reduction funding and some potential with the focus on the Lakeview is some potential land requirements on some right of way requirements on that. So that was the reason that we balanced between those reserves.
Okay, and are those reserves currently short? I'm not sure where they're sitting currently.
I can tell you the municipal land reserve currently has a balance of 1.4 million. That's
Okay.
before any surplus moved in. And the capital reserve has a balance of 3 million.
Okay,
You're always short.
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. I see no more questions. I think this is a good decision. Honestly, I think it's good. This is a recommendation to council, right?
Yes.
No, this is a special council meeting.
Oh, this is a special council meeting.
It's a special council meeting.
Not committee
I can
anymore,
make a
yeah.
motion.
And that is because we need to get this done.
For year end.
For year end.
Correct.
Yes. I knew there was a good reason. All right, Ken wants to make the motion.
Ready?
Yep.
That a 2023 municipal operating surplus estimated to be 4.58 million be split equally between the municipal land and facilities reserve and the capital reserve, so that each reserve receives $2.29 million each.
Anything to add to that?
I'm supposed to have the pinky in my finger? No, nothing. I just, thank you again, administration, and thanks for the recommendation.
Thanks for the tight budgeting. I think it sounds like a lot of money, but it's pretty good. As a percentage of the total
Yeah.
budget, for sure, yeah. Call for the vote. All right, that is unanimous. Councillor Jolly, just so you know, when we get to this motion, because it's so big and long and you're the fastest talker, I'm going to you.
So moved.
Okay, operating a capital carry forwards, and projects. I'm just gonna do this one. Okay,
Thank you. So good afternoon, Madam Mayor.
I just still bills.
My name is Suzanne Finley. I'm the Manager of Financial Services, and I'm here today to talk about our operating capital carry forward projects. So as part of our year-end process, and as noted in Council Policy CFS 11, operating and capital carry forwards and closed projects, any operational or capital project that has not been completed during its budgeted fiscal year should be brought forward for consideration as part of administration's report on proposed year-end transfers. Approval by council to carry these projects into 2024 ensures that funding is available to complete the projects without impacting tax or future year budgets. So we'll start with the capital. In 2023, there were 155 municipal capital projects. Of those projects, 106 are being requested to be carried into 2024 with a budget of 284.2 million, which is a net increase of 285.6 thousand. However, 216,600 of this increase relates to a consolidation of the Community Capital Grant Program, as the three projects were combined into one. There is also an increase in City Playground Lifecycle Program, as the city entered into a funding agreement with Variety Alberta to increase the scope to make Lodgepole Park fully accessible. The city did create a new project to address maintenance for capital projects that have been closed. It is funded from the capital reserve and the residual balance of the prior year maintenance project and has a budget of 200,000. Offsetting the increase was a decrease to the budget for Fire Hall 1 NABI decommissioning of 345,000. So while final work will be done in 24, it was determined that the full budget was not required and the funds were uncommitted within the capital reserve. 49 of the 155 municipal projects are being closed with a net surplus of 267,000, which is recommended to be uncommitted to their respective funding sources and used for future council approved projects. I wanted to provide a little bit more clarity around the Meadowview Land project. While this project does show that it doesn't have a budget, it was an approved council project. On July 8, 2019, council approved that administration move ahead to expropriate the Meadowview land and that the funding come from the municipal land and facilities reserved. And it was approved through in-camera 19078. As this involved sensitive negotiations, a budget was not set up, but the funds were committed within the reserve and applied against expenses. As the land sale has been completed in 2023, funds were applied from the reserve and the project has been closed. So we'll now move on to utility capital projects. There are 55 utility projects, of which 41 are being requested to be carried into 2024 with a budget of 98.9 million and 14 projects to be closed with a net surplus of 139,000. As with the municipal projects, we are recommending the surplus funds be uncommitted to their respective funding sources to be used for future council approved projects. On the operating side, there is 8.4 million being requested to be carried into 2024 to ensure that commitments can be funded. Of the 8.4 million, 4.2 million is being carried forward from the 2023 budget and 4.1 million from prior year carry forwards. There is also 76,000 related to utility carry forwards. A number of operating carry forward projects funded from reserves were also completed during the year. As such, the residual balance of 1.95 million, which includes a 2023 commitment for the EMTSC increase, is recommended to be uncommitted in the respective reserves. So that concludes my short presentation, and staff in the respective departments are available to answer any questions on the capital or operating carry forwards. Thank you.
I have.
Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the numbers. Go ahead, Mike.
I have maybe what embarrassing question for me to ask. What does FAC stand for when it's listed in the
Campbell.
Capital?
It's final acceptance certificate. That's when a project is.
So we hold back that final amount before the certificate?
I think Donnie, thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Killick, we hold back deficiency funds at CCC, which is the construction completion certificate. FAC is the next step after the warranty expires. Then we accept and release all the holdback at that point.
That's why it's so long after the project's actually been completed. It's that.
That's right. Typically 2 years. Some elements in capital, it's typically 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, because it looked quite different because some of the projects were actually approved in 19 and had such a long cycle. I couldn't figure out why it was, but that explains it. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. This is just for clarity. This isn't, I just wanted to understand why we're carrying them over. The library operational review, from what I can tell, we're done that, but we're still carrying it over by a little bit. Is there a reason why?
I believe that the invoice was still coming in, but there was just a delay in the payment of the invoice.
Okay.
From what we had understood.
Okay. So that is case 416-418 noise attenuation. So how close are we to actually completing that? And the other question is, let's just say that there is something where, and I have no idea what the results are, to be clear, but if there was a situation where it did pass the threshold, can we go to the province for that money, or is it still not going to be on us to mitigate any noise issues?
I think Dean's popped up online.
I don't.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hughes, for your question. So in regards to the project itself, we have identified some locations where they're experiencing higher noise levels. For clarity, though, as per the reports that are public and on the city website, there's nothing that is currently outside of industry tolerance levels. So just for clarity on that. What we're looking at is potentially some best practice reviews of policy, and then also to try and get a bit of a case study of one of the more problematic sites to showcase and maybe give an example of what measure would be recommended and what potential costs would be resulting from that measurement, just to give some context and some full understanding of what impacts may be. So that's the next steps. Now that we finished, I would call it phase 1 and phase 2 of the project. So that's kind of our anticipated next steps. In regards to the question of the provincial, I'm going to go out and assume that we're kind of referencing anything in alignment adjacent to the Anthony Henday. And so in regards to that right now, I can share that the province has performed necessary noise studies. They've essentially in other jurisdictions, inclusive of St. Albert, come to the conclusion to say that no noise mitigation is not currently on any plans, any projects or funding. In the event that noise levels were recorded and identified to be higher beyond the current, like the industry tolerance levels, we could communicate with them, but there's been no confirmation of action if that ever occurs. And so we'd have to face that essentially when or if that should ever occur.
Okay. And when do you think you're going to have any updates to us about your recommendations or best practices for this project? I'm not asking you to do it today. I'm just looking so I know I have a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, I anticipate that it's going to take us another year or so. So I mean, give some contingency, and I'll say maybe Q2 of 2025 by the time all is said and done, and we get the resources kind of to get this going.
Okay, thank you.
And just Hughes, I just want to touch base on that library. It is actually on the residual balance to be completed. We did receive the final invoice before year end. So that's on the completed to be closed.
Okay. All right, so it's coming. We just don't have it in this document, but it's
actually on the completed list to close. So we actually
did. Oh, okay. You know what? I'm just looking at so many pages here at the same time. Thank you for that. A couple questions about, okay, so emergency services. I'm just curious. It says pipes and drums and it's a carry forward and it says as per union agreement. What does pipes and drums mean?
The regimental
pipe band.
Pipe band.
It's Craig.
Yeah.
Everett, Chief Cook is online, and I'll ask Everett to answer.
Thank you, William or Bill, CAO Fletcher. Sorry, wow.
Whoever he is.
Through to Councillor Hughes. This is actually seed money for the St. Albert Fire Services startup of the Pipes and Drums Band, which complements the Honor Guard, which is already in place and attached to our collective bargaining agreement. It's the expectation of these folks, and it's their desire to promote and celebrate the City of St. Albert, all events, including council swearing in ceremonies, as an example, through their efforts, again, bringing tradition as well as honor to various events that we host throughout the community.
Okay, and when do you guys think you'll actually acquire these items?
It's actually underway right now, and I can assure you that the group sounds a heck of a lot better than they did about 6 months ago when they started. They actually sound fantastic. With
Everett's got to sit lip to the practice.
Well, these are thin walls in the fire hall. But at the end of the day, they are hoping to attend their first event. I believe it was May of this year. So again, this is seed money for the City of St. Albert to support that group.
Okay, perfect. So a question.
Everett, can you let us know when that is so we can come watch?
Or not?
I most certainly will. In fact, I'm actually working on an event for which they will be attending, which council will receive an invite here for early April or mid-April. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but it's going to be a good one, and we hope to see you there and hope to have them there as well.
Just so you know, my birthday's in March, just.
The cat out of the bag, similar to the sound that the bagpipes are making right now.
Oh. Keep going.
Yeah, so from 415, so from 2015, we had an approval of a 415-506 Smart City Master Plan Alliance. Are we still doing anything under that? Or can we actually, is there intention to close this, or, because we're 9 years in here, so just wondering where we're at.
The Alliance was an ongoing working group, but I don't know if they meet anymore.
Okay. Is it possible that we can close this, or?
Like when we should be able to, yeah.
Joanne, yeah, I think Joe Graham's popped up, director of IT as well.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, Councillor Hughes. So as you may note in the notes in the document, you're quite correct, is that that money is not needed specifically for the master plan or the Alliance. But when we chose not to have ongoing master plans, we also chose to include smart city principles within all of our other master plans. So this money was then allocated for the consulting services to assist with the development of those smart city principles. We also have another initiative that is looking at smart automation and the governance needed for that. So the funds were designated for those two purposes and are expected to be closed in 2024.
Okay, so we're still going to be using them. We're just going to redirect them, I guess, in the same theme.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Oh, while you're here, don't go anywhere, John. So the security analyst, it says there's a delay in hiring. I'm just wondering if you can shed a detail as to why there's a delay. Is it? I don't know. I have no idea.
The delay, thank you for that question as well. The delay occurred in 2023, and that was primarily, we knew when this position was approved by council that it would be difficult. It's a very competitive market for security analysts. So we were able to complete the hire in Q4 of 2023. The funds that were in the operating budget were for security services, and we intentionally chose not to go to market with this for new security services until our security analyst was in place.
Makes sense. Thank you for that. One other one about, it's not you, Joanne. I think you're off the hook with me now. For plan development. So we have 459,000 for the Sturgeon County annexation, and it says to do some studies. It's on page 54 again. I'm just going to go up to that page. So I did everything. Of course, I wrote a thing random in my order. So it's 459,000 under the prior year carry forward from reserve. But I'm just, did we agree to those? I don't remember doing an LRT corridor expansion study as one of the things that we agreed to in the annexation. So, I guess, can you just shed a bit of light on what we're doing here?
Yeah, thanks, Council. I'll turn it over to Adrian Slatt.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Hughes. I was going to speak to the studies in generality. I don't remember specifics about the LRT study, but in general, we did have a number of follow-up studies, as you're aware, for the transportation master plan, utilities master plan, etc. So I don't know if we've got maybe Dean around on that LRT study.
Sorry, just to jump in, I don't have any recollection of a specific targeted just for maybe clarity is with our mobility strategy, LRT will be a component, and at some point in time we'll want to investigate the future needs, connecting and communicating and collaborating with the city of Edmonton and whatnot on where they are at, how far they progressed, and what our future kind of needs and possible staging or planning considerations are. But there's nothing immediate as far as I'm aware of direct LRT study that was discussed.
So
thanks.
And perhaps we can come back to Councillor with some additional detail. We'll obviously have to that will.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like imperative. There's not any rush on it. It just specifically says LRT corridor expansion study. So I just didn't remember that being a trigger. I can see the master plan and transportation and all of that. So as a follow-up, Adrian, just because you're here, so we finished that. It's approved. We put it forward to bed in the end of 2021, and it was approved in 2022. So was there a timeline or when we think these are going to be triggered, or do we have a deadline, or is it just going to be as needed for these studies? I can't remember.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Council Hughes. I don't believe that there was date certains on these kind of things. I think it was kind of as we were able to get the studies done.
Okay. So, because I'm just wondering, like, do we have like a decade? Like, I'm not saying we're taking a decade. I'm just asking, like, does it really? Because this annexation was not an immediate annexation. It was like 50 years plus out. So are we delaying it in part because we have to kind of see where things are going before we actually start them? Is that kind of the rationale?
I think some of the work that needs to be done is just a matter of capacity and being able to do that work.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. You guys have a new person coming, remember? But that's not for a bit. And even that will only help it a little bit, not handle that. Thank you for that. I have one more question relating to the fire tanker aerial. So we're planning to have that and the fire truck. We're planning to have that by basically what, Q3 of 2025? Is that right? So how will that connect with, we now approved and figured out what we're doing for the fire hall. When do we think the fire hall will be finished? Because of, all these other decisions in relation to the fire trucks. And I'm assuming we have a spot for the aerial because we had two and now we have one. Do we have a spot for the extra fire truck as well? That's a lot of questions, but just so I had them all out.
You're okay. I can, Councillor Hughes, I can start. I will likely ask Donnie George, or if Meredith is still present, to actually talk about when we can expect the fire hall to be open. They'll have a better handle on that than I do. Speaking of the apparatus, we actually currently have room within our existing fire halls today to accommodate growth in our apparatus. And looking forward operationally, we are considering a variety of scenarios where we will visit the placement of apparatus to best suit our community, as well as the responses into, call it, the newly annexed lands, for example. With regards to your point on the aerial, it is our intent to continue with releasing an RFP to procure a Stalker demo unit to, one, expedite the process of obtaining that piece of equipment. Number two, help reduce costs, providing, of course, that piece of equipment meets our needs. We are still working with procurement. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact date, but hope to have that out by Q2 of this year. I need to caution that we do live in a world right now of moving targets with regards to build times of equipment and apparatus. So I may have to come back with an update that may, to council, that may identify that it's going to be a little bit longer, or could be a little bit of shorter response time on that delivery. So just wanted to share that.
It's all good. I know everything is fluid. So it's just a goal, not necessarily, an absolute. I had one more question, not related to fire, about municipal naming. So we've finished this project and it came to council, I believe, a year ago. So it's still, is it on the closed list? I misunderstood it. Maybe it's on the closed list, or is it still being carried? And if so, why?
Yeah, it's on the closed list.
Okay. I just missed it. I just looked it up and put it in the wrong category. That's all the questions I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor had to step out for a few minutes and she asked me to be traffic cop here for a sec. I have one question, and that's any update on the status of the ACA? That's what I was gonna ask. Oh, okay. Anything further on them?
I'll ask if Reckitt Parks has anything. No, is the bottom line. Short answer, status quo is still that kind of waiting for
holding pattern.
Yeah, holding pattern. But Danielle, please go ahead if you have anything additional.
I have no further adds to that, Mr. Fletcher. The only other check-in could be with Mr. Slatt, as we're waiting on development permits. That's the next queue for us to provide funding to the group. And Mr. Slatt may have an update from there.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. So no particular updates since I want to say September, October. The last I knew, the applicant was still working to provide some technical detail about their proposed development.
Fair enough.
Have we dispersed any monies in relation to that yet? So we've held back the total 1.5. Okay.
The trigger was the development.
The trigger is the development. So we just haven't contributed anything to certain stages. It's the entire amount. Okay.
Any other questions, anybody? online? Councillor Bermansky? Nothing? All right, over to you, Councillor Jolly. Want to read the motion?
Sure. So that the 2023 municipal capital carry forward amount of 284.2 million, which includes a 285.4 thousand net budget increase, is detailed in the document entitled Municipal Capital Projects Carry Forward be approved. That the residual balances remaining in the 2023 municipal capital closed projects in the amount of 267.9 thousand is detailed in the document entitled Municipal Capital Projects Closed be uncommitted within their respective funding sources. That the 2023 utility capital carry forward amount of 98.9 million as detailed in the document entitled Utility Capital Projects Carry Forward be approved. That the residual balances remaining in the 2023 utility capital completed projects in the amount of 139,000 is detailed in the document entitled Utility Capital Projects Closed be uncommitted within their respective funding sources. That the 2023 municipal and utility operating carry forward amount of 8.4 million is detailed in the document entitled Operating Carry Forwards be approved, and that the reserve balances be updated to reflect the realized net savings from completed municipal and utility operating projects as detailed in the document entitled Completed Operating Projects with Residual Balances.
Well done. We'll take 5 seconds and the mayor can raise.
Oh.
We have a new member in council.
Oh.
Okay, I guess just call the questions.
Oh, question. All those in
All in
favor?
favor? Let's see. Yep.
All right, that's it?
Yep.
Meeting adjourned. Great. All right.